Hello, I'm Father Andrew Apostoli. I've been working for the cause of canonization for Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen for over 10 years now. I do believe that if it's God's will, and if the Church so proclaims him a saint, that he would be a great inspirer in so many areas of our Catholic life. One area where he was a great defender was the area of life itself. You know, he wrote a very beautiful little prayer to adopt an unborn child that was in danger of abortion. This is the prayer he wrote. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, I love you very much. I beg you to spare the life of the unborn child that I have spiritually adopted, who is in danger of abortion. He said, you may never know who that child was in this world, but you will certainly be told who it was in the next world. You know, Jesus will tell us souls that we have saved from abortion through that spiritual adoption. Another thing he said was a great prediction he made way back in 1952. He was talking about the question of contraception. In other words, when people practice contraception, what they do is they want to have sexual relations, the pleasure of that, but they don't want any children. And so they block the possibility of conceiving a child. And the bishop said this, if we adopt contraception, the practice of contraception, he said, then abortion, euthanasia, and violence will follow. Why did he say that? Well, he realized that if people get used to having sexual relations with no responsibility, in other words, no child can be conceived, they'll just want to focus on the pleasure alone. Well then, if a child is conceived and that child is not wanted, then they're going to demand abortion to do away with unwanted, unborn children. And once they get used to that, he said, then they're going to start to want to get rid of any other people who are burdens to them, like the handicapped, the elderly, the terminally ill. And so they will demand euthanasia. That will follow, and it has certainly followed in our society today. And finally, he said, once that takes hold, there's going to be a surge of violence. Why? Because once you say that any life does not need to be respected, does not need to be safeguarded, because it has a dignity from God, it is sacred. Once you take that sacred quality away, well then any life can be done away with. And people are going to get used to the idea that life becomes very cheap, as they would say, huh? There's no more sacredness to it. And that's what's happened in our society. We just have to look around. We are one of the most violent societies in the world. You know, we hear of mass shootings and people that murders that occur, you know, sometimes over nothing. You know, someone recently in a drugstore went in and wanted prescription drugs. They ended up killing 4 people. 4 human lives were taken because these people wanted to have the drugs they wanted. Life was no longer sacred, no longer important. And he said, unless we reverse this trend, he said, we are going to come to what he called midnight on the clock of anti-life. And that, he said, is going to lead us to the greatest destruction of human life. He felt it would lead us to a nuclear war. That's a tragic, tragic thought. But he was very prophetic. And he said, we have to do everything we can to reverse this clock, you know, this clock toward death, okay, and restore the clock of life. So let us pray that if it's God's will, Archbishop Fulton Sheen, a great prophet, a prophet for our times, you know, will be accepted for canonization, and that his message of pro-life will move a lot of people to once again recognize the sacredness of every human life from conception to natural death, and will move us to work towards safeguarding that life. God love you.